There's enough reasons to suggest that this is Sony's X100V, and some of them may even make you consider this over the X100V if you still can't get your hands on one. Don't get me wrong, there is a counter argument to this as well, and we will cover both sides of this. And I do think a huge part of this is down to the JPEGs I'm getting straight out of this camera, because those are not normal Sony colors. First, we have to understand why people like the Fuji X100V so much, so we can have a base to compare it to the A7C Mark II. Now, everyone's gonna have their own opinion on this, but for me, it comes down to the experience of using it. We so rarely talk about camera experience outside of specs and features. It's a huge part of what makes a camera enjoyable to use. And if you're using this for not professional work, but for personal stuff, for travel as your everyday carry, to take pictures of your kids, just general pictures, which I think a huge portion of X100V users are, and that's why it's so popular, how enjoyable it is to use is hugely underrated. But what actually makes it enjoyable? Now, there's a few things. Firstly, it looks nice to own as a thing. People like having nice things, and it has that retro camera look, which appeals to a lot of people. It's very nostalgic. Tie that together with the simplicity aspect of it, because the X100V is an incredibly powerful, compact camera, but a lot of people, including myself when I owned it, are using it as a glorified point and shoot. To capture things quickly that look really good with a minimal amount of effort. And this is a huge part of what makes the film simulations so enjoyable. Remember when people were using Instagram filters? It's the same reason. You can take an image and just get a look. Essentially, they are ready to share on social media or wherever straight away, without you having to do anything extra. And the more I experiment with the A7C Mark II, and the A7CR, I guess, as well, but because this is more budget friendly, this is gonna be more attainable for people, the more it makes me think of the X100V. This is Sony's version of it. Now, obviously, the size is gonna play a big factor in the X100V versus this, because the X100V has a fixed lens you can't remove, and it's a tiny little pancake lens. And obviously with this, you have different options of lenses that you can buy. Some are bigger if you're going with a newer style Sony lenses, but you can also get some smaller lenses as well, which I've done in a whole video I've talked about up here. Now, we can't discredit the look, the retro, nostalgic look that people like the X100V for. Well, the A7C Mark II has a silver option. You can get it in full black, but you can also get it in this retro style silver and black option. It's more of a matte kind of, it's got a little like gold tint in it almost, but it is really nice, and it definitely has that retro vibe. With the X100V, you are getting all the tactile switches and the buttons and all the things that allow you to do things manually. You don't get that on the Sony camera here. You do have switches and dials which you can assign for things, but they don't have that retro look about them. Essentially what those are giving you is a more hands-on control experience when you want to play about with settings. When I first had the X100V, I was using those and playing about with those for a little bit, but after a while, and I can guarantee a huge portion of X100V users that are just picking this up as a glorified point and shoot aren't using those switches long term. They are putting it in some form of auto mode, maybe controlling the shutter speed, maybe leaving it in full auto mode with the film simulation turned on, and they're not touching those switches or those dials. The film simulation is obviously a huge thing which make the X100V so popular for people. And something I've been playing with for a while now with Sony is the ability to customize the picture profiles and get a set of custom simulations that are mimicking those same Fuji film simulations that you get in Fuji cameras, like the X100V. I won't get in too deep as to how we do this, because it is a set of paid settings that you essentially are paying someone for. There's a guy that I'll link down below, and I'll reference the video up here that I've done before, which covers everything. He has spent a lot of time customizing all of the available options in the picture profiles that you have available to you in Sony cameras. So if you have any Sony camera, you can actually customize these settings. And he's got a huge amount of film simulations that he's constantly updating for you to play about with. Purchase them once, I think it was like $30 US, and you get all the settings, you get access to the website, and he lets you go in and see what everything is, and then you have to go through and customize them yourself. But the other added benefit of it being one of Sony's more modern, actually at the time of making this video, is Sony's most modern camera, is that you get all the latest and greatest tech inside it as well. So yeah, great, you can use it as a point and shoot, set your focus point right in the middle, or however you want to do it. Maybe go shutter priority, set a max ISO limit, and just fire away, controlling the shutter. You could put it in full auto and do the same if you wanted to. You're gonna get the best autofocus tech. It's gonna track an eye if you're following a person, and you're gonna get beautiful JPEGs just straight out of the camera with having to do next to no work, really. But then if you wanna use this for more as a video camera that can shoot 4K 60, 4K 24, beautiful image, completely color gradable, S-Log 3. It has everything in there as well. And that was something I always wanted out of the X100V. I wanted a little bit more out of it. Yeah, I was using it as a point and shoot, but sometimes I'd maybe want to use it for a little bit more and potentially shoot some video with it. And it never really felt like it sufficed because it wasn't designed specifically as a hybrid camera. It's a primarily stills camera, which led me to ultimately end up comparing it to my Sony cameras, and just got to the point where it would be sat on a shelf and I wouldn't be using it, and then I would end up selling it. Now, I have owned Fuji cameras 4 or 5 times before, and I always end up doing the same thing based on what I just said there. I end up selling them. When you have a huge percentage of that now with the colors that you can get out of this from the JPEGs, and being a modern, latest and greatest camera, and it's still a Sony camera, so it goes with all my lenses I already have. So this makes a lot more sense if you are a Sony shooter looking at something like an X100V. And then when you want to use it as a regular Sony camera with all the other stuff, you can. Now, some notable things that this doesn't do that the X100V really did very, very well and made it, for some people, the camera to get. The screen on the X100V was a flip up. Doesn't flip out to the side, and I will say that this, for photography, taking stills, is not enjoyable to take pictures like this. There's just something about it. I've said this before. As a hybrid option, yeah, the A7R5 actually does it best. It has the multi-angle where it can tilt up as well. But the Fuji X100V, if you're just using it as a stills point and shoot, having the angle up screen is a better option than this. With the X100V as well, you also have an OVF/EVF hybrid. So it's an optical viewfinder in that rangefinder style body, but it's also an EVF that you can swap between the both. So it's digital, but then you can also see the real world as well. And there's some interesting little things you can do with overlays in there, and you can see the EVF and the OVF at the same time. And it's very enjoyable to use, and this isn't, put frankly. Ultimately, I end up just using the screen with this. Don't use the EVF that much, but with the X100V, it's really enjoyable to use that OVF-EVF hybrid. Now, the other thing you gotta think about is the fixed lens versus changeable lens, because believe it or not, having a fixed lens is actually a benefit in some respects, because it makes you think more about when you're taking a photo about the composition. It makes you slow down a little bit more, maybe take a couple of steps in, take a couple of steps out. You don't have the option of adding another lens because you just can't. With this, there's always gonna be the option, oh, I could change out to the 28 or the 35. Maybe I'm using the 16 today. I actually enjoyed the X100V's body style as well. This has an actual grip on it. The X100V was a lot more flat. You can buy grips for it, which were really nice actually. They match the body very, very well. But to just have that rangefinder style body, it just feels really good in the hand. It looks nice as a thing when it's just there and square. The other thing you have to think about is the price attainability of getting an X100V right now, because yes, it's an incredibly fairly priced camera for what it is, but because of that, it's sold out everywhere. You can't get one. You have to go to the used market, resellers market, and it's hugely inflated. This is very close in price to what the X100V is right now on the used market, so it is a lot more money, but you can get one. So that's something you have to think about too. But if you're a Sony user and you want an X100V, or if you're looking at an X100V and can't get one still, give this a go. Maybe try renting it, borrowing it from a friend. I don't think you'll be disappointed if you use it the same way I've been using it.